Hey everybody, it's Mr. Monitor. I hope everyone is doing well. Hopefully the videos I've been putting online for you have been helping you with some of this new material. We're going to throw another one together here. This one's on circumference. We've already done area. Now we have to figure out how to find circumference when we're not just going to take a string and wrap it around the outside of that circular object. So now, hopefully everybody remembers the parts that we're talking about here. Now we're talking circumference. And for these three objects, here you can see that the circumference of the pizza, the coin, and the orange would be the very outside part of those circular objects. That's what we're talking about today. So now how do we go about finding the circumference of a circle? Well, let's take, for example, this playground. And on the playground, you can see there's a big circular, well, there's lots of circles. There's a hoop over there by the palm tree. Looks like there's a beach ball on here. But we've got lots of circles. There's even a circle right here in the middle. But that's not the one we're looking at for today. What we're going to check out is the main circle of the entire thing. And when we look at that circle, it's going to be this guy, that main rail going around the top. We want to figure out how long is that circumference? How long is that? Couple things we need. We already know what pi is. Pi is 3.14. Pi always comes into play when we're dealing with circles. But the other thing, when we're trying to find circumference, we need to find this part. Do you guys remember what that one is? That's right, that's the diameter. Now, in this case, the diameter of this circular playground set is 64 feet. And that's going to be very important when we move on to our next step. Just like when we found the area of a circle, circumference also has what we call a formula. And I like to think of that as a mathematical recipe. In other words, we have a recipe we have to follow. The ingredients are going to be those parts of the circle, and we're going to sprinkle those in when the time is right, and hopefully our answer comes out fine on the other side. So for this one, circumference equals pi times the diameter. So here's the circle we were talking about from our playground, and here comes our diameter. If you remember, the diameter was 64 feet across. Those are all the ingredients we need. Now, let's get it started. Our formula is circumference, that's the C, equals the pi times D. Remember, D stands for diameter. Now, we're going to go ahead and sprinkle in our ingredients. The circumference equals, well, pi is 3.14 and the diameter is 64. And again, just like in the area formula, we have our parentheses around pi. When you don't see any other operator symbols and a number is just right up against the parentheses, that tells us we're going to multiply. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take our calculators out. We're going to take 3.14 times 64. It's going to come up to 200.96 feet. So as the kids are playing, if the parents are walking around the outside of this circle, just kind of checking everything out, they are going to walk 200.96 feet. That's a terrible circle I drew, but you get the idea. 200.96 feet. Now, there's one thing we forgot. If you watched the other video, which you should have, we always circle our final answer. Now guys, for full disclosure, there's more than one way to find circumference. There's actually another formula we can use, and that is circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius of the circle. Now I think that gets a little bit confusing sometimes, so I like to just stick with the regular old 2 equals pi times d, but I want to show you this because you are going to run into it. So if we have that exact same circle from before, and there's our diameter of the playground, that's the 64 feet across, that's the diameter. So when we go to plug in the information into this formula, the 2 is a 2, pi is 3.14, but we've got to figure out the radius of this circle. And this is where it gets tricky. What they've given us is the diameter. If you remember, radius is half the diameter. So the radius for this circle would be 32 feet. So those are the values we're going to plug in, and then just go to work on our calculator. 2 times 3.14 is 6.28, and then 6.28 times 32 gives us 200.96 feet. So it ends up being the same value as what we did with circumference equals pi times d. I just don't like this because I think it's a little bit confusing. All right, guys, I am super duper proud of this slide. I think this one's pretty awesome. So for some reason, this unicorn wanted to ride on the Ferris wheel, but it didn't realize how far it was actually traveling. So if I said, how far is it traveling around this Ferris wheel? It's not 250 feet. 250 feet is the diameter. What the unicorn is actually traveling would be that distance around the outside of the circle. I'm watching it. It's mesmerizing. So what we've got going on here is that unicorn is traveling the circumference in one of those cars. Hopefully it's not just flying. So let's figure out how far that unicorn is actually traveling. So we're going to use our formula, circumference equals pi times diameter. We're going to put in our two known entities here, our values, and it's 3.14 for pi, and our diameter was 250 feet. And when we multiply them, we get 785 feet. So our unicorn is traveling every rotation 785 feet. Oh, forgot to circle it. There we go. Now for this last one, I looked around and found some circular objects just in the pantry. How many of you ran out and grabbed some tuna fish? There it is. Whoop, whoop. Okay. And I said, I wonder what the circumference of this can of tuna fish would be. So I happen to have my metric ruler here. There's our metric units. There's the centimeters. And I just measured across. Hopefully you can see that okay. And when I measure across the very middle as best I could, I came up with, well, obviously circumference equals pi times diameter, but I came up with 8.4 centimeters as our diameter. And pi is pi, it's 3.14. So when I go through and multiply those together, I found out that around the outside ridge here of our star-kissed solid white albacore tuna in water, it measured 26.376 centimeters. So that was pretty cool. So guys, finding circumference is pretty easy. You need pi and you need diameter. So that's pretty simple. And if they give you the radius, just double it and make it a diameter. It's not a big deal. But I did want to give you a kind of a challenging question. If you take a look at this, it says Macy measures a truck's tire mark for 1 complete revolution. So she put a little mark on the tire and kind of watched it rotate all the way around, and noticed that that one revolution, it traveled 120.48 inches. Wow, that's pretty long. So what she wants to know is, what is the diameter of the tire? Ooh. So what do we have in this problem? It says 1 complete revolution. We know that. What would that be? That's our circumference. They told us the circumference, and it says the circumference is right here, 120.48 inches. So they already gave us the circumference. We want to find the diameter. Well, we can do that. We're going to use the same formula, okay? We want the diameter. So here's our circumference equals pi d. What can we enter into our formula? We have a little bit of a different setup. We already know the circumference. It's 120.48 inches. And we know pi, 3.14. We don't know the diameter. That's what we're looking for. This type of question turns into one of our one-step algebraic problems, actually. And if you remember how to do that, we want to get the variable all by itself. In this case, the d for diameter. So what's the opposite of multiplying times 3.14? There, I gave you a clue. There's the line. That's right. We're going to divide by 3.14. And you've heard me say this a million times. Whatever I do on the right, I got to do on the left. So I'm also going to divide the 120.48 by 3.14. And as we do that, the two pi numbers on the right cancel out. And that just leaves me with 120.48 divided by 3.14 equals the diameter. So it seems really complicated, but it's not too bad. It's stuff you've done multiple times this year. When those 3.14s cross out, the diameter is left all by itself. And now all we have to do is divide. And when we do that, we get 38.3 inches. So the distance across the middle through the center point of Macy's truck tire is 38.3 inches. That's about as complicated of a circumference question as you're going to ever see. I promised myself we'd get a little bit shorter, but it's just the way math is sometimes. Um, I have two questions to follow up, and one says the Earth has a diameter of 7,926.41 miles, and we want to know the circumference, so pretty straightforward. The second one is a bit of a challenge. Look what it says. The circumference of a circle is 36.31. They're telling us the circumference, but they want to know what is the length of the radius. Ooh, I'm not going to spoil it for you. I want to see if you can figure out what the radius would be. Guys, that's it. Hopefully you don't have any problems with this. Circumference equals pi times diameter. And remember, for that last question, radius is half the diameter. So if you solve it for diameter, like we did with Macy's truck tire, just cut the answer in half and you got the radius. Anyway, I've told you too much already. If you have questions, as always, email me. I'm going to try to set up some little video chats. We'll see how that works out. But good luck. And as always, go Dukes!